Alright, so what is going on, you guys, and welcome back to another video on the channel. So as you can tell with the title and the thumbnail of today's video, I'm going to be talking about this new console setting that's actually been added to every single console available. So this setting is actually game changing, and there's actually more to the setting than you think. When I name it, you're probably going to think, well, I already know what that means. There's actually more information to talk about. When you go in detail, there's actually a lot of pros and cons to this setting. And this setting is actually motion blur. So as you guys may or may not already know, this was basically only available to people who had a next gen console, and obviously it was available to people who played PC as well. So if you had a PS4 Pro, an Xbox One S, or you played controller on PC, or just PC in general, you would have had the option to actually turn this setting on. So by default, for all us normal, regular PS4 players and Xbox One players, basically by default this setting was automatically on, but now the setting's been added to all the consoles that are available, and we have the option to turn it off if you want to. So basically, for everyone now who just plays regular console, including myself, I'm going to be talking about why you should turn this setting off, and why there's so many negatives to the setting, and there are some good things about it, but overall it's definitely a setting that you want to turn off. And I'm going to be going quite in detail about why you should turn the setting off, and talking about the actual pros and cons of it. So the main question is, what is motion blur? So as you guys may or may not know, motion blur is basically when something's in motion, depending on the frame rate, it will look like kind of staggered when moving. So to smoothen this up, you add motion blur. If you guys don't know already as well, this is a very popular feature within video games. This is used in like racing games, shooting games, basically any games that involve movement. This setting is actually used. And as I said, there's more to the setting than you think. So I'm going to show an image right now, as you can see on screen. For example, that is when you're driving a car in GTA. You can see the actual background of the movement is actually blurred to give it more of an effect of what it's actually doing, to make it more realistic, you could say. And I'm going to show another image on screen right now, comparing motion blur on with motion blur off. So as you can see by the image on screen, obviously the image on the left is with motion blur on, and the image on the right is with motion blur off, and there's a pretty big difference, as you can see. And in my opinion, with motion blur on, obviously it looks a lot smoother. Your building may look smoother, it may be like more satisfying to watch. If you're making like a video on it, showcasing your building or building techniques or whatever. But basically, if you want to take this game seriously and actually be the best player that you can be, it's definitely worth turning this setting off. Now as I said, the game doesn't look as good and as smooth with the setting off, but it is definitely worth sacrificing for how good the game feels without it. It gives a competitive advantage as well. You can see opponents better, and you don't really have to rely on like luck and muscle memory if the setting is on, because if I'm using motion blur and I'm moving around on the map, I'm looking for opponents in the distance, and as you can tell by the image I've shown, everything is blurred, so it's more difficult to actually see your opponents, especially if they are far away. And it gives an effect where you kind of have to like guess where your opponent is in gunfights, and it makes it really difficult to just sort of like play out, because as I said, with the setting on, you have to kind of rely on your muscle memory to actually kind of work out where they are and just kind of guess where the actual movement is on your screen. And you actually have to kind of like rely on luck as well, especially if the lighting in a certain area on the map is kind of like a bit darker. If you're in a darker area, it may be difficult to see your opponent's skin, and you need to take into consideration as well, like what skin they're actually wearing. Maybe they're wearing a skin that kind of like blends in with the actual scenery. It's going to make it even more difficult then, if everything's just blurred. And everything's kind of difficult enough to see with the blur on. So but yeah, that definitely doesn't make it any better with that sort of aspect in the game. Now I'm going to show a video in the background right now of me actually comparing motion blur on to motion blur off, showcasing just me building, so you guys have a bit more of an idea on the actual difference between the setting on and off. Now as I said, it got added to normal generation consoles, so just the standard PS4, the standard Xbox One, because previously it was on the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One S. And you guys may notice by this gameplay, because I just played on a standard PS4, I don't play the PS4 Pro, so this setting got added for me literally yesterday with the update, and yeah, basically it's not as strong compared to the other like PS4 Pros and the Xbox One S. It's not as strong compared to the next gen consoles, but you can definitely notice that there is motion blur on, and it adds like a blur effect to your actual screen, especially when building and shaking your screen, doing 90s, all that type of stuff. You can definitely notice the difference. Now the reason it is actually on console and why they added it to all of them is because it makes 60 FPS feel a lot better. So 60 frames, which is what we are capped on console, because no matter what console you play, no matter what you do, no matter how good your internet is, you can never get more than 60 FPS on a console. That's why a lot of good like pro players switch to a PC, like FaZe Sway, you know, all like the good control players and all the competitive players have switched to PC because you just get higher FPS and it's a lot better, even though it may not like you may not notice a difference when like watching videos, but trust me, the difference between controller on PC and console is huge. So yeah, you definitely have much more of an advantage the higher FPS you have, especially if you're at like 244, obviously depending on how good your PC is. But anyway, going back to what I was talking about, 60 frames without motion blur. Basically, it can hurt your eyes a little bit, but now it blurs the pixels together, and it's a lot more soothing for your eyes. So basically, like as I said, this has a lot of pros and cons, this setting. Overall, I'd say it's got more negative features than positive features. The main positive thing I'd say is for like if you're a content creator and you like to make montages and stuff like that, it definitely is a lot more satisfying to watch with motion blur on. You know, it's a lot more satisfying, it's a lot more clean, a lot more smooth. But like overall, if you're trying to be a good player and just make, you know, content that kind of focuses on competitive and just being a good player, and for me as well, I just like to have it off because I don't really make montages that much and I don't really focus on just smooth console building and stuff, so I like to have the setting off. But as I said, it's up to you guys whether you have it on or off, because it's your decision at the end of the day. As I said, I personally recommend having it off. Another reason as well, this is a huge negative feature to the setting, and this is the input delay. So if you actually have motion blur on, you may actually notice that there is quite a lot of input delay with this setting. Now you may be asking yourself, well, what is input delay? What does that mean? Basically, the input is when you press a button. So basically, say now I just press X to jump. So that's the input, that's me clicking the button, that's me telling the console what to do, that's me inputting the information. And the delay is how long it takes to come up on screen. So say now I press X to jump, which is obviously my jump button, I press X, and then like, you know, 0.2 seconds later, my character actually jumps on screen. There's a 0.2 second input delay. So that's basically what it means. And having delay means that like when I'm moving, it's not actually happening as quick as it should be on screen. So yeah, that's like a huge negative feature with motion blur. Input delay, you may not like notice it at first when you just turn the setting on or off, but after a while when you turn the setting off, because by default it is on, but when you turn the setting off, you are going to notice that there is going to be a bit less input delay, especially for us console players capped to 60 FPS. You want as little delay as possible, so that's another reason why you should turn the setting off. But yeah, the reason why there is input delay is because it just blurs the pixels when you move, so you're not seeing the frames like you should be. As I said, it doesn't really give much input delay, it just gives a very small input delay, but you can definitely notice a difference, especially like after you've been playing for a while with the setting off compared to when you may have been using it on. Also as well, for me, when I was playing with motion blur, I was playing it with it on yesterday because I wanted to test it out and see what it's like. And I noticed that because there was like such a blur on my screen, I was waiting for the blur on my screen to stop before I was about to take the shot. Because as I said, it kind of distracts you and it makes it more difficult to see your opponent because you're relying on muscle memory and luck, as I've already mentioned earlier on in the video. So yeah, if you want to get better and just be the best player that you can be, I definitely recommend turning this setting off. Another huge negative feature to motion blur as well is that it blurs your aim. Now you may not actually see this, but trust me, when you're actually aiming in with like an assault rifle or anything like that, your eyes don't see what's properly on your screen. It just sees like the blurred version of it. So say now I'm like shooting somebody, like especially the further away, the more effect it actually has. But say now I'm shooting somebody like, I don't know, 150 meters away with a SCAR, it's going to be blurred, and especially if you're going for flick shots as well with your shotgun, who's like, you know, say now you're in like a bit of a build fight, there's somebody like below you, just like 2 or 3 floors below you, you're taking shots of them, you're going for nice flick shots, it's going to be like, especially when you're flicking, because obviously you're moving your actual analog stick more, resulting in more blur. So yeah, that is pretty much everything regarding this motion blur topic and this setting. Make sure you guys leave a comment down below. What are your thoughts on this setting? Do you use it on or do you use it off? Because you know it's been on by default for most of us, but now we have the option to actually turn it off. And yeah, to basically summarize, turn the setting off because it has so many downsides compared to, you know, how many positive features it has. But yeah, as I said, that's the end of this video. Thank you guys very much for watching. Don't forget to drop a like if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new, and of course turn on post notifications so you don't miss any future uploads, because I'm pretty much uploading daily now, so yeah, you don't want to miss these uploads, especially ones like these where I'm keeping you guys up to date with the latest news on Fortnite and talking about like settings and stuff like that. And of course, if you want to support me any further, feel free to use code CoreyJT123 in the Fortnite item shop. You can drop me a picture, you can drop me a tweet, drop me a DM on Instagram. Both links in the description to my socials. You can just show some proof of you using my code, and yeah, I will give you guys a shout out in a video and follow you back and all that good stuff. But anyway, that's enough talking. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.